Hudson.
Hey Vapaiva, my summer cars. Problems with the engine, ignition, coolant, gearbox and clutch are in the past. We talked about them in previous videos. Check the playlist about troubleshooting Satsuma in the description. Today we finally got to the problems with the electrics of Satsuma. There are three types of problems. First, the wiring is not fully connected. Second, the spare parts are worn out. Third, the battery is totally low. You may experience troubles with the Satsuma electrics even at the assembly stage during the first launch. Perhaps you are missing some kind of wire. Write a comment to let me know if you need the complete guide how to assemble Satsuma in my summer car. But still, let's check if all the basic wires are in their place. Any actions related to wiring must be done by completely de-energizing Satsuma, that is, unscrew the negative and positive terminals. Check the wire from the ignition switch to the fuse box. Then, three wires from the main harness connector, the first to the positive terminal of the battery, the second to the ignition coil, the third to the voltage regulator. Further, on the starter, unscrew the bolts and nuts and connect the battery to the starter. From the battery positive terminal, the wire to the starter under the nut by 5, and from the negative terminal to the ground on the battery ground connector under the bolt by 7. When we removed the engine in the previous video about the gearbox, we had to connect these two wires again. They disappear every time the engine is removed. Therefore, never lose coil of wires. But check two another important wires right now. From the main harness connector to the radiator, the cooling of Satsuma will depend on this. And the next one, from the alternator to the regulator. Without this wire, the battery in Satsuma will be constantly discharged. While I was filming all this, I accidentally tightened the positive terminal and therefore the spark passed when the wire was connected. The main character has a chance to die from this. Experienced players know that when they wake up on their very first morning, the first thing they need to do is to go to the garage and charge the old black battery. The emitter on the charger does not show the battery charge, but the current that the charger gives to the battery. The more the arrow points to the left, the more charged the battery is. If the arrow is pointing to the right, then the battery can be thrown away. Both old and new batteries from the store will discharge over time if they are not used. So it's not a surprise that the old discharged battery does not supply power to the car at the first start. In total, if the ignition does not turn on in the car, there are only two reasons: either you are missing some wire or the battery is completely discharged. The battery is getting low for a reason. While you are driving Satsuma, the alternator under the hood quietly does its job and charges the battery. If this doesn't happen, a red light on the dashboard comes on. There are several reasons for this signal. First, you ignored the first part of this video and forgot to run the wire from the alternator to the regulator. This is the worst thing, because no current comes from the alternator and the battery instantly runs out. Second, the wiring is okay, but the alternator itself is dying over time and it copes with the task worse and worse. At first, the red lamp will light up at low speeds, and until you press on the throttle, the alternator power will not be enough. Ideally, when you see such a picture, go directly to the mechanic and change the alternator. If you keep driving with the lamp on, bad things will happen. Probably the battery will be discharged, then the alternator itself will jam. Then the belt will rub against the jammed alternator pulley, break and fly off. It will leave the water pump without rotation and the car without cooling. As a result, the engine will overheat. The pistons will fly out and break a hole in the block. This is of course an extreme case. Most likely the car will use the last charge on the battery and slowly stand up, having lost the ignition. As you may notice, the alternator won't work without the belt. The alternator itself regulates the belt tension. A loose belt easily flies off and makes that disgusting sound. An over-tightened belt will break faster. The ideal alternator position is 2 scrolls back from the extreme right position. If the belt has fallen off, the red light will immediately light up, because the alternator and the pump will stop rotating. In practice, you have a small reserve to get to the nearest point, to a mechanic for example, or to a store. Without a belt, you are dealing with engine overheating, and this is the topic of another video, the link is in the description. What else can drain the battery? Let's say endless attempts to use the starter. The starter is an electric motor that is powered directly from the battery. It also wears out. Sooner or later, the moment comes when the starter starts to make noises or unsuccessfully tries to spin the flywheel. At first, the car will start on the second or on the third time, but there is always a risk that the battery charge will not be enough. The recommendation is very simple. If you hear grunting, immediately go to the mechanic for a replacement. In the case, if you completely damage your starter, it makes a short low sound and it completely refuses to start Satsuma. Troubleshooting electrics in Satsuma is actually not as difficult as it seems at first glance. I tried to clarify it. If you like this guide, subscribe to the channel. Well, and don't forget about the videos in the description. Rondon at the microphone, stay well.